How's it going, guys? Sorry for more storms. 1000 today is December 7th, 2020, and obviously in this video we'll primarily focus on this Midwest snowstorm that's expected to happen going into next or this coming weekend. So let's begin by first taking a look at what the GFS model is saying today. So based off of yesterday's video, you would assume that this snowstorm would be a little bit further to the west. However, I noticed that in the later run, in today's run, the GFS model has not only taken a weaker storm, but a little shift more towards the east, and that's what I sort of expected. If this storm were to take a more if this storm were to take a turn up northward a little bit later and track a little bit more eastward, is that this storm would be weaker. And it's because that if there's a less pronounced dip in the jet stream to where the winds would be facing more from east to west rather than having a strong south to north wind from a pronounced dip in the jet stream, then it's more likely that not only the storm would move more in an easterly to westerly direction along with the upper level jet stream winds, it would also be weaker because of that less pronounced jet stream dip that would cause more instability to rapidly intensify this storm. So the GFS has now been leaning more towards the European model in today's run, and I noticed that the forecast models are also bringing the storm northward a little bit earlier as well, and impacting the Midwest a little bit earlier because during yesterday's run it was more it was more leaning towards a Saturday night to Sunday time frame. But however, with both the European and GFS, it's more they're both expecting more of a Saturday time frame to even early Friday type storm impacting the Midwest. However, there are still differences in the model. It's not like the GFS has completely replicated the European model or completely copied its trajectory, because the European model is still leaning towards taking this a little bit more west and still weaker than the GFS model, and this would be more of an impact to Wisconsin and Minnesota rather than the Dakotas, while the GFS is taking more of that impact more towards the Dakotas and the western half of Minnesota in terms of rainfall impacts. And in terms of how strong it is, yesterday I said there is a potential of the blizzard, but as of right now, I wouldn't say either of these scenarios are blizzard type conditions just yet, because these are relatively weak compared to the typical type blizzard snowstorms you would see, because its millibar pressure is at 997 millibars and the European is at 998. And yesterday the GFS was down to the 980s, and so was a European. So both have taken more weaker storms moving up north. However, there's still a lot of uncertainty because look, we're still 120 hours out. So we just need to wait and see how far south that jet stream dips to determine how much instability it will encounter, which will be the key in determining how strong the storm will be going into this weekend and where exactly the storm will land. Because if the jet stream dip is more pronounced, and not only will we will see the storm um, turn up north earlier, but we'll also see a much stronger storm. And I think the best chance for a blizzard is if it impacts mainly the Dakotas and Minnesota, because I don't really expect, if this storm does move a little bit more to the west to the east, then I don't expect this to rapidly intensify, because if it does take that track more to the east and turns up northward a little bit later and slowly meander towards the north and east, then it's likely that the jet stream dip isn't very pronounced, and that there won't be a ton of instability to rapidly intensify it, bring a lot of convection within the center of circulation, and there really won't be a very strong storm as a result of that, or very low air pressure, low pressure systems enough to really bring those strong winds in and to rapidly intensify it and make that convection explode. So the best chance of a blizzard is if it takes the more northward track a little bit earlier, where it'll impact the Midwest and potentially Minnesota as well. Um, so if this does take the track to the east, I expect mainly a weaker storm. However, still measurable snowfall, mainly throughout the Great Lakes. And as for the Northeast, I think it's unlikely that you guys will see much of any snow. Maybe in the extremely interior parts. I'm going far out, so this could completely change. But by the way it's looking pretty unlikely that you'll see much of any type of snow in the Northeast, mainly due to the dominant ridge that's going to dominate. And even though we're 5 days out, I find it hard to believe that there will be a huge, just major shift in where the ridge builds up to the point where we could see a little bit of cold air sneak in and bring some snow to much of the Northeast. We may see a little bit of snow after on the backside where we get lake effect snow, and that there's a big dip in the jet stream, which is expected and typical for a lot of mid-latitude cyclones moving through the United States. However, in terms of snow that will impact the major cities in the Northeast, that seems unlikely. So the point, however, I will say with confidence that there will likely be a snowstorm somewhere in the Northeast, but it all depends on this jet stream to determine how strong it will be. And I think the main people that would be impacted by a snowstorm from this snowstorm extends from the Dakotas all the way, I would say, to Michigan and maybe even the northern portions of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. Might be watching this. Might want to be start watching this, because if this moves in a way where it doesn't move very north very quickly, there could be just enough cold air on the back side of it that could filter into Chicago and northern portions of Indiana to a point where you could experience snow. So don't let your guard down just yet in the northern portions of the Midwest, as you could definitely see some snow from this if it takes the right trajectory. However, so far the both the computer models have been a little bit closer together in this latest run, which is good because that gives a little bit more certainty with the forecast. But I just want to remind you we're 5 days out. A lot could fluctuate over the next several days in the forecast models, so we need to watch. However, it's good news that we're seeing those models start to agree a little bit. It would be a little worrying if we still saw GFS this far to the west and then we saw the European this far to the east today, but they're a little bit closer together, so we're getting a little bit more certain that some sort of snowstorm will affect this vicinity of the United States, pretty much a northern Midwest states. So we need to be watching um, for that over the next several days. Now, in terms of the snowfalls, you could potentially see if the GFS model were correct. You see that this could potentially, although this won't be a very powerful storm, this could be a potentially major. It could potentially bring major snow where potentially over a foot of snow throughout Minnesota, extending to the Dakotas, and it's a pretty large swath of snow that's impacting millions of people. So you need to definitely keep in mind this. This won't be extremely powerful. However, it could be enough to dump over a foot of snow, as both the GFS and the European model are seem to agree on that, where since both the computer models, although they're pretty high in pressure at 998 and 997 millibars respectively, they could still dump a lot of snow and pack in a lot of moisture despite not being entirely powerful. So it's definitely something to watch in the Midwest going into next week. And keep in mind, this is assuming that 1 inch of rain equates to 10 inches of snow, so it might be a little lower than this. We have to see how the ground temperature is in throughout Minnesota and North Dakota, and also how much moisture content is within each snowflake, because that could also determine how much actual snow you receive, because this snowstorm could be completely different and might be completely um, different from the 1 inch to 10 inch ratio of snow and liquid. So we need to just watch how this snowstorm builds up, and how what type of snowstorm it will be over the next several days. And like I said, what will determine the jet stream dip is pretty much how a lot of these low pressure systems coming off the Pacific Northwest will position itself. And that really all depends on this mid latitude cyclone that's in the Northwest Pacific and this ridge of high pressure in Canada. Because if the ridge builds in a way to where it forces a lot of these Alberta clippers further south, then that jet stream dip will be more pronounced and we'll see a much more significant blizzard. However, if it positions itself to a point where the clipper systems won't move very far south, and it'll take a long time for this low pressure system to actually interact with this clipper system, and we might not see as much of a strong storm impacting the United States. So we just have to wait and see for that. But as for everything else that's going on in the United States, you see that there's a lot of convection towards the eastern half of the U.S., more specifically the southeast portion of the U.S., and this is as a result of sort of a subtropical low pressure system that formed right around Mexico, and now it's encountering just enough instability to create a lot of this convection, and we're seeing a lot of those low level winds blow over the much warmer Gulf of Mexico, and it's encountering that instability that's allowing a lot of those cloud tops, a lot of that moisture to condense in the upper atmosphere, which hence the reason why we're seeing a lot of those greens and those dark reds throughout the Gulf of Mexico. However, the well, it may be good news, it may be bad news, but it depends whether you like snow or not. But it seems like this low pressure system will mainly stay off the coast of the northeast United States, and while it may bring some rain over Florida and the southeast, don't expect much from this, because it's just going to be a pretty big ridge of high pressure and just a lot of dry air that's going to push this off the coast to the point where we won't really see any sort of impacts along the coast when it comes to snowfall, rainfall, or any type of precipitation. Maybe some elevated wave heights, but that's about it. And it's not even expected to be that strong anyways. If you take a look at the GFS forecast, you see that we do see a little bit of rain and thunderstorm activity in Florida, so keep in mind that. And then you see that it just stays far enough offshore to where it doesn't really bring much moisture to the northeast coast or much of anything, and it isn't that strong either. It's at 991 millibars, but we've obviously seen mid latitude cyclones much stronger than that before along the northeast, so it isn't a major threat to worry about even when it comes to waves. So that's definitely good news for a lot, that we're not seeing much impacts from this. And then what else is going on? You might notice that there's a little bit of convection towards Nevada, and this is from a cutoff low that sort of found its way further south and cut itself off from the jet stream from this mid latitude cyclone. Has just enough energy, and there's just enough ridging here steering the storm this low pressure further south to a point where it's independent. It completely cut off from the jet stream, and this cold core low is expected to move over the Pacific and re-strengthen as it encounters the relatively warmer Pacific Ocean waters, and this will be the key in strengthening this later what would be the Midwest snowstorm, since it is expected to move to the east with the subtropical ridge, and then it'll be forced up by this ridge that's expected to build, and it will interact with some of this energy from this mid latitude cyclone, the same one that brought this storm further south, and that will create the snowstorm. So it won't bring much precipitation for now the throughout Nevada and California. Just a lot of convection, cloudiness, and not a lot of precipitation for now, but it will begin to gain some precipitation as it encounters some instability once the jet stream dips throughout the United States, and obviously will become what will be the Midwest snowstorm that will come next weekend. So I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to subscribe if you like this content. And I hope you guys have a good day, good night, and good afternoon whenever you're watching this.